Alrighty, welcome back everybody to the 10th episode of the Basement Binge. Pretty exciting episode as well. We watched Marvel's The Avengers, or Marvel The Avengers. Great movie, man. Really enjoyed this. So yeah, 10th episode, closing of Phase 1, and it's such a huge film with The Avengers that we're excited to talk about.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and I'm Kelton here.
And I'm Cade.
And I'm Harrison. I forgot to say my name.
And you guys know the drill. We love seeing you guys download the podcast every week and listen in, but we also want to reach our goal. For those who can't remember, we're trying to reach 1,000 total downloads by the end of the year. So that means each and every episode we got to be grinding and sharing the crap out of this stuff. So whenever you share it, talk to your family, your friends, your grandma. We don't care. As long as you guys can share it, that'd be amazing. You're the best. And just help us reach our goal. So Keep sharing, guys.
Yeah, and this is Cade right here. I'm so excited for this episode, and you guys have been really going out and really talking about what we're doing here, and it's so cool to see that. And speaking of that, something really exciting happened this week, and we want to give a huge shout out to someone who made our first mention. Shout out to What Should We Watch podcast. They gave us a mention in their Follow Friday hashtag tweet yesterday, and seeing that yesterday was the coolest feeling. Like, look at that. We were out in the world, and people know about us. So thank you guys. That was great. That was like the coolest feeling. I was just on this major hype for like 5-10 minutes because look at that, man. Someone's, helping us out here. So thank you to you guys. Also, another reminder to keep update about stay on Twitter and as well as Instagram to have fun little trivia questions like I did before on my personal Instagram account as well as on our Twitter page. So stay up to date with that and keep on downloading.
Yeah, and if you're new to the podcast, please definitely consider subscribing. We got some pretty exciting things in the works here that I'm really excited about. But jumping into this podcast here, we'll start, as always, with our 2 cents, where we get 2 minutes of uninterrupted time to just kind of give our initial knee-jerk reaction to this movie without having to deal with the comments of the other two hosts here. And then follow that up with Pick Your Poison, where it's our personal rating scale, anywhere between never watching this movie again to renting to buying. So just kind of the fun rating scale we've picked up. Followed by Binge Points, which are Easter eggs or things we noticed or just details that are fun, fun things we enjoyed about watching the movie. Ending that segment with our favorite and least favorite scenes. And then my favorite part of the show is where we fall in. We talk about the messages or themes or meanings in this movie that have impacted us and kind of a deeper meaning for enjoying it. So I will start with my 2 cents here. Get my 2 minutes on the clock. We're going. So I haven't seen this movie in a long time. I remember when we did our ranking, I mentioned I hadn't watched it in a while. But then I rewatched it just for fun. But I stopped watching right before the final battle. The New York battle. And just not having that ending, I was like, this movie's not that good. Like, I remember why it's so low on my list. But then watching it today and finishing the movie, I was like, man, this movie's really good. It's incredibly well done, I thought. It's fun to watch, but I also thought that it was so comic booky in a good way, for lack of better words. Like, everything about it, just the way the story was told, kind of like the team-up nature with the reluctant heroes, but they also work well super together. Just the pacing and how the story was told, but a really fun story mixed in with a good villain and good character development, but also like character development that isn't complete in this story because it's going to go on and tell other stories in its own issue, just like a comic book, which I just thought was so cool. It has really good spectacle, just like a comic book does. It's fun to look at. The quippiness and good humor and personality, it just was a really good adaptation of a comic book to film. And Josh Whedon has a really good understanding of how to do that in a positive way. And it was pretty interesting to see that. But also, Cap is super old, and that's funny, especially after watching Captain America. That was a ton of fun. Stark is super cocky. Bruce is just worried all the time. Nick Fury's the ultimate spy. Natasha's fun. Loki's just a super genius. It was just a really good really good understanding of comics and what makes those fun, but also movie and what makes that fun. Also historic, that pan around scene of all the heroes, just historic scene. This moment, whether you like it or not, it changed Hollywood and movie making forever. for better or for worse, but it will never be the same because of this. Just a really fun film, really good one.
Wow. Those are good. 1 second spur.
All right, Katie, you want to give me my 2 minutes?
You are on.
All right, my 2 cents. Well, this movie, I totally agree with Harrison. This movie definitely changed the movie landscape because I think it took on the feel of doing something. Well, I was surprised watching the movie this time around again, that it seemed like it was slow but not at the same time. Like, it gave the required amount of time to allow the characters to develop, allow the plot to continue on, and go through the roller coaster of emotions that a good movie will make you feel. And this movie does that so well. And especially having a giant battle scene. I've seen a bunch of movies out there where the whole movie is dedicated to the giant war in the city, and buildings are getting destroyed and stuff, and there's not a lot of story behind it. And I think Avengers really tackles that super well, because you get to watch all these characters develop, because this is the first movie where all of the different Avengers are put together. And I feel like each and every one had their moment where they're kind of, it's just their character development. It's slow for them. You kind of get to see how they feel in that moment, how they're kind of acting in the group of Avengers, and how well they kind of work together. I seriously, as I'm thinking about it, I can't think of a single one where they didn't have a personal moment. So mad props to that, being able to have all these different characters and loops going on, and each one of them had their own moment. But the movie itself is a great movie because it's funny enough and the action's awesome and cool enough is that it's still fun every single time you watch it. But Avengers definitely being able to tie things together on the first stage in phase 1 of the MCU was incredible. So, great movie all around.
There you go.
Dude, 2 minutes is not enough.
It is not
for this movie.
Come on.
All right, it's my 2 minutes. Wow, this movie, I remember as a little kid just so hyped about this movie and loving just all the action, and I was kind of worried that my favorite characters and weren't be able to give enough screen time, but they were able to evenly just share that screen time. And this movie's is 2 hours and 20 minutes, something like that. And so they did really well with that. And my first reactions is seeing Natasha and Hawkeye work together. I realized that they're the daughter and the son of the Avengers / MCU. They're they have this relationship that's just really just relatable, I'd say. Even though they're this guy is an amazing archery, and Natasha's this amazing assassin / spy, but their commentary and banter is really relatable. Yeah. And so I just love that. And also I was really wanting to know, just look more at Loki, and so Loki as a villain in this movie compared to Thor, he has made leaps and bounds in becoming evil. He's made these, he's more just villainous, and he just doesn't care about killing, about death and just murder and stuff. And so and the way he talks and everything, that he's just he feels he's just so arrogant, that the arrogance in Thor and in his movie has flipped to Loki pretty much. That's what I feel like, that he's just super arrogant, but he's also a coward inside still. Loki's just kind of he's got thrown into all of this mess of this New York battle, but he really doesn't know what's going to happen, or really doesn't know the true meaning of what his actions have done. But there's a lot of things I want to talk about, and I'm running out of time, so I'll leave it at that.
Perfect. All right, now that transitions us to the next section, which is Pick Your Poison, baby. We're going to go over our different rankings we made a couple weeks ago in one of our podcasts, ranking all the MCU movies in order, and also the different phases, phase 1, just those, I believe, 7 movies.
5, I think.
Sorry, just kidding, 5, and ranking those. So we're going to review those, and then also Pick Your Poison as we choose between 3 different rankings, as to never watch this movie again, and then renting the movie, like every once in a while you go and watch it again, or buying the movie and owning it so you can watch it whenever you want. So I will start us off with picking my poison of buying this movie. You know, I feel like in the MCU we're going to be saying that for pretty much every single movie, but I seriously feel like this is a great all-around movie, and it'd be fun just to watch. You know, you don't even have to watch it in order because it's a complete enough story so that it makes sense, so it doesn't like leave you hanging necessarily, like needing to watch other things. So I would definitely buy this movie so I could watch it whenever I want, and I'm probably gonna watch it like 20 more times before I die. Who knows? But and then on the MCU ranking, before I had this ranked at, I believe, number
13.
13. So kind of right there in the middle. You know, it sounds kind of low to me, but like thinking about all the other MCU movies, it's hard to move that up because that means something has to go down. So I think I'm gonna have to. I don't know. I think it'll probably stay in the same spot. But yeah, definitely good all-around movie. And then in terms of in the phase rankings,
Let's see here, sorry.
this one ranked at
3.
number 3, which I believe I had Iron Man and Captain America ahead of that.
Yes.
Alright, interesting. That might change. We'll see. But yeah.
Yeah, with the spoilers, we'll see at the end of this podcast. We're gonna re-rank the phase 1 at the end of this one. But okay, I'm next here. So pick my poison. Obviously, buy this movie. Ditto what Kelton said. It's a movie that you can rewatch a million times, which I'll talk a little bit more about in my binge points. But my ranking here, I have it at 14. That seems kind of low, but it's also right in the middle. It will probably move up just because, like I said, I hadn't seen this movie in a long time when doing this ranking, and I forgot how much, personally, I truly, truly enjoyed this movie. As far as the phase goes, I believe mine also was at number 3. That will probably go up to number 2. Spoilers. But, I don't know. We'll see. I got to decide before we get to the ranking. Yeah, so I'd buy it. Definitely. I mean, I already own it, so I guess I bought it.
It's like every time you're like, should we buy it, rent it, or never watch it? And you're like, well, I already have it. So like, the 2 segment is like worthless for me. Okay, well, for me, pick my poison. I definitely buy it. Absolutely. It's a movie that, one, I think it's really important for the origin story of the Hulk and Natasha and Hawkeye. I think those are really important. So I think it's a vital movie for the MCU. In obvious reasons. In my rankings, I had in the overall rankings for me, it was at number 8. It's in the top 10 for me, which actually I'm surprised. I forgot I put it up there. So it may move, it may stay put, but we'll have to see. I just love this movie. It's a very, very big original. For me, in the phase 1, it was at number 2. Just below Iron Man, and I think it could probably stay put, but we will see at the end of this podcast, so you have to wait to the end. So that ends our segment here. Our next one is binge points. Just little references within the movie that we liked or we enjoyed, or little messages or little funny comments or banters that back and forth between the characters. One thing I wanted to point out for binge points is the point when Iron Man and Thor and Captain America are all fighting in the forest, right? And then after they're on the aircraft, the carrier, and when Tony Stark walks up to Iron Man and he's like, Point Break, you have a mean swing. So he makes that little comment. So Point Break, I found out that Point Break is a movie.
Yeah.
And it's got Keanu Reeves in it, and I can't remember this other guy, but Keanu Reeves' partner in that movie, the way his character is just like Thor almost. So it was like a reference, like insults, and so that actual reference of Point Break actually it carries over into like throughout Thor's arc of his story. So I thought that was really funny.
Alright, I had no idea that was like a reference.
It was, yeah, totally.
Cool.
Yeah.
I just think it's like makes like Tony Stark that much more funny, you know? Like
Oh, yeah.
just coming up with these like witty comments and stuff.
Yeah. Pop culture genius.
I can't think of any other comments that Tony Stark made, but like that was the one that I was looking for. Another reference that I thought was really interesting was, let me look for it. Colton, do you want to show yours?
Yeah, talking about something that you made me think about, Kate, is talking about like this witty banter kind of stuff. I have realized in every single one of these movies, like a requirement to be a superhero is you have to be like witty. Like all the time when they're like talking with the villain, it's always like, oh yeah, psych, pun right here, boom, I'm a superhero. It's just like, what? Like the entire movie, every single one of them had these punchlines. I think it just makes it really funny.
It's like a necessity that the villain has like some stupid monologue that the hero has some witty comment to.
And sometimes it's like so anticipated. Like we all know it's coming, so it's almost too cheesy. But it's without it feels like it's missing. You know?
Mm-hmm.
But props to this movie because it has some freaking funny comments.
Yeah.
Like we were talking, we watched it. Nick Fury when he's talking to the council, they're like, "We're gonna nuke the city." He's like, "Yeah, well, how do you say?"
In regards, because it's a stupid decision, I've been elected to ignore it.
Elected to ignore it. Like that is so funny.
Or like when Nick Fury was talking to Thor, or not talking to Thor, talking to Loki, and he's like, "You don't understand true power." And then Nick Fury's like, "Well, let me know if true power needs a magazine or anything."
The dialogue is incredible. Just props to spicing it up. Because I'm sure if you're like dealing with like huge like world level threats where the world's gonna end like any day now, like I'm sure you could just make it like super boring as possible. Like, okay, we gotta get this done, save the world, boom, we got it. But like for the movie, it's so entertaining, just the dialogue, just to see how they just make it funny and a lot more interesting. So definitely a binge point for me.
Yeah. I got a lot of binge points. So I'll just, like a list I have here is the cellist in Portland that Phil Coulson, Agent Coulson, is dating. It's just like, it almost has like its story, like its own arc. So it's at the beginning when he brings like the files of the Avengers to Tony Stark, and Pepper's there. And she's like, I want to hear about this cellist. And he's like, oh, she moved back to Portland. And then later, Phil and Tony walk into the helicarrier to meet up with the other Avengers. And he's like, I'll tell you, take a week off. I'll fly you to Portland. Keep love alive. And then later, when Phil Coulson dies, Captain America's like, does he have any family? He's like, no, just a cellist in Portland. I thought that was funny.
It's really, reference that they actually continue that story in the TV show Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Like, they go off about that, like, in depth. So, yeah, that's a really cool. That's the reference that I remembered that I wanted to say.
That's a big binge point then. So I didn't know that. I haven't watched that show. The other one is I noticed that nobody calls each other like their superhero names. No. Except for there's one time that Natasha does to Clint. She calls him Hawkeye. It's a scene where she jumps on like the Chitauri fighter thing and she's flying it around. And she says something like Hawkeye when she like needs help with the dude chasing her. And I thought that was cool because like out of all people, they're the most close. So it's almost like a nickname she has for him. Like...
That's what
it's not like a superhero name, like alter ego. It's just kind of like a nickname, which I thought was funny. We definitely need more Maria Hill. I wish we had more of her. I don't know the actress's name, but she's great. I wish we had more Maria Hill. She's fun. But also, at the very end, there was a lot of reference about courting or dating things in this movie. Yeah, at the very end, the other is talking to Thanos, the first time we see him, talking about how the Earth and the Avengers, so to speak, humans should not be, like, contended with because they're going to kill you. And so he says contending with them will be to court death, which I thought was a fun reference in to the comics because Thanos falls in love with death and his love for death makes him go after the Infinity Stones. So not that happens in the MCU, it's just kind of like a fun nod to it. The other thing, the last binge point, which is just kind of like a whole point of this movie. So I've been reading a lot more comics because of the MCU. I hadn't really before that. And in reading comics and knowing kind of the way comic stories are told and how they work, this is such a good adaptation of comics. Like not just the actual comics of Iron Man and the Avengers and Captain America, but just comics in general. Like the way a comic story is told is you have these single issues. Like you have your Black Widow comic or your Iron Man comic or your Captain America comic, and then you have this big event where there's an Avengers comic and all of them get together. But and then after that, you go back to like your Black Widow comic, and there's stories that continue based off the Avengers comic. You guys following? Is that making sense?
Yeah.
So this movie does the same thing, but it's also fun just like a comic. Oh, you can just pick up the Avengers comic and have fun reading it without having to know the stories beforehand. Yeah. This does the same thing, but it's more rewarding if you know the stories beforehand. You're in on the little details. And the other thing is if you have no clue who the Hulk is or who Black Widow, there's enough hints that you can put it together. But then it puts in addition to like the focus of that Avengers comic, that big team up issue, is the team up nature and the villain that they fight. And that's the focus of this movie. But there's little quips and little story arcs that start in this that are later told more in other issues and like single issues, if that makes sense. Like, I'm kind of making it confusing, but it was just like a huge understanding that you have these single issue character focused comics that come to this big team up event that's focused on the team up event, but tells small stories that those characters continue on in their own stories.
Branch off.
Yeah, and that's exactly what this does. And I just like, so at the same time, it totally focuses on the nature of the villain and the team up, which is a ton of fun, while also balancing like seriousness with humor, just like a comic, balancing good action, just like a comic. But then it sets up things in the smallest way where you'd want to continue with those other single stories that come after, but not to the point where you lose your interest in the big event that's happening now. I just like, that is so much work with the director, Josh Whedon, the story writing, the screenplay. Like, I'm just amazed how well they balanced all that. Like, I'll talk about that later in Age of Ultron, but like, props to everyone involved in making this movie because it's a big deal. Like, you don't have to like it, but I hope that you can respect like the talent that went into the creation of this movie. And it's also just a ton of fun. But that was a really long point.
Yeah, but it's a good one though. And going off of what you said, that you look at other movies like before this about all these big names coming together and fighting, is that it's like essentially focused on like banter and the action. And this like was able to, satisfy those two things, but it was to maintain those stories. I think that's what made Avengers so successful, is that they kept hold of the story and didn't let it like falter or veer off to where you're like, I don't know what's going on. It's just fighting and explosions. But I do agree with you on that one.
Yeah. So another binge point I have, and one that I really, really appreciate and respect so much, is that this movie is really realistic. Because I feel if you bring a whole band of superheroes together, and let's be real, they're all like probably pretty dang prideful,
And way different.
Yeah, totally, from different worlds.
Captain America is from the
situations and time.
Yeah.
So it's like, bro, you're going to have different guys come together, and it's not like, oh, you're another Avenger, we're instant best friends. Heck yeah, it's because they have the world. No, it's not going to happen. And you see, like, beef come up, and it pretty much causes problems, like
major
later
beef.
in the movie. Yeah. And I seriously feel like that's something that would actually happen. And that it's not all going to be merry, and they're just going to get all, okay, let's save the world again, yay. But you're going to have issues come up because of, like, the different personalities and cultures and worlds and time and everything. And then another point going off of this, how it's so realistic, is if you watch some action movies, you watch this dude like get kicked in the groin, punched in the face like 80 times, shot in the shoulder, and then he's like still fighting just fine. It's like, what? Like if any of you have ever watched John Wick, oh my gosh, dude, it makes zero sense. Like the action's so sick, but that guy's indestructible. Nothing ever like phases him whatsoever. So I remember there's two scenes that made me think about this. When Hawkeye's fighting Natasha, when Hawkeye's like still kind of like taking over control from the scepter, and when Natasha hits his head into the bar and he's just like totally wasted.
Yeah.
He can't even like get up again. He's just like a druggie. And I feel like that's what totally would happen if I take a freaking bar to my forehead, flying around from a kick or something. I ain't gonna be moving. Like, you can't keep fighting. And so, like, the fact that he was just dazed, I was like, thank you. None of this stupid, like, oh, I can keep fighting and crazy action. I'm so good at fighting, whatever. But it's like, if I get hit hard, obviously, like any natural human, it's gonna hurt and I'm not gonna be able to fight.
Yeah.
And then there's the other scene when Captain America is, like, fighting with Thor. at like ground zero of New York, and he gets like shot in the stomach and he falls down and he's like bleeding and stuff. It shows that he's like exhausted. And this fight's like taking a toll on him, and all the Avengers are starting to get tired, and it just shows that they're superheroes, but it doesn't mean they're like infinitely powerful.
Yeah.
So I thought this movie did a really good job of keeping things realistic, and like even just showing like, I don't want to get too deep here, but showing how like politics really can morph a big like group or project like that. You see Nick Fury, the constant like conversation he has with the board to control them and to make certain decisions on how like people will get overruled, and it's all about like, well, we gotta blow up the aliens before it takes over the world. Like just like the issues you'll see there that would really happen, because some people in a situation like in the movie, they're gonna want to nuke like ground zero to kill all the aliens, even though it means like killing millions of people. Like that's a serious like ethical issue that like people, or moral issue that people would have, and I think this movie did a great job of showing that. Like more than anything, it's a movie about aliens from space, but it still keeps it realistic. So I definitely enjoy that a bunch.
Yeah.
So, another cool binge point.
So should we move into our next segment of least favorite scenes or dislikes and favorite scenes?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll go first. The least favorite scene, I promise, I knew this was coming, and I was trying to find one, and I just don't have one. I don't have a least favorite scene. If I were to have a dislike, it would be that the first half of the movie moves a little slow, but it's fun. Like, it's not horrible that you're like, oh, let's just get this over with. Like, there's a part of me that's like, oh, I just want to see the fun action. I'm here for the team up. Mm-hmm. But like Kellen said, it's realistic. So I dislike it, but I also appreciate it and like it. I'm kind of like on the fence with it. In some moments, I'm like, oh, this is too slow. In other moments, I'm like, I really appreciate what they're doing. Yeah. But it's like I don't have a least favorite scene. So.
I have one actually. The
shawarma scene at the end.
That just made me hungry, dude.
Yeah, I want to get like a burger or something. I'd say my least favorite scene would have to be like when the beginning scene with Eric Selvig. He goes in and starts talking to like as if the test was like a girl or something like that. She's misbehaving, and she's just she turns on the power when we turn it off. It's like, this is just weird, man. This is a weird vibe. It's like, okay, whatever, man. It was hard to ignore.
Cheesy for me. I know what
it was cheesy. It was just like this, like, okay, this is.
I mean, you could refer to it as like, oh, she's getting stronger, or whatever, but like, he kept going with it, like, the whole time. It's like, hey, stop, dude. This is not like a girl, like.
And I think it continues throughout the movie too.
Yeah, and it was just uncomfortable for me.
I think they needed to drop that.
Yeah. Okay.
He starts misbehaving. It's just to show that he's like this scientist that doesn't know what's happening, but he just like becomes like this weirdly attached to it. Yeah, it's so weird.
She's shown me something. It's more than knowledge. It's truth. It's like, but
cute, bro.
But I will say I don't dislike that because I think it shows like the level of mind control that he's under. That he's nuts.
He turns insane.
Yeah.
He goes crazy.
But yeah.
Yeah, it gets a little too much.
So, Kellen, do you have a least favorite scene?
Yeah, and it's against Captain America.
Of course it is.
Oh my!
I wanted to ask you about that actually.
Listen up. Let me tell you.
Listen up.
So it's in the beginning when he's like starting to have some beef
he's like beating
with
up
Iron Man.
Oh, okay.
And not just because it's Iron Man, but just because.
Wait, what scene?
So it's right when Tony Stark and Bruce Banner are starting to like work together to look for what.
Oh, the blueberry scene, where Iron Man has a blueberry and he's like, blueberry.
But yeah.
Okay.
And so like, it just all of. So I feel like the way Captain America is like, if he disagrees with it, you're wrong. Like, he may believe in something, you may believe in something else, but if it's not what he believes in, you're doing something wrong. And that bugs me about Captain America, because if you look at it, Tony Stark, he's starting to, like, investigate and, like, do things he shouldn't, like, look into S.H.I.E.L.D.'s, like, classified files and everything. And Captain America's, like, freaking out and going crazy and, like, insulting Tony Stark a bunch. And then as soon as that happens, what does Captain America do? He goes snooping by himself, and then he finds out stuff, and then he's like, okay, yeah, they're actually doing something wrong. Tony Stark was right. I mean, yeah, I think it's good that he snooped and found out for himself, but I just do not like how much of a jerk he was before he did that. He's like all being self-righteous and calling Tony a bunch of stupid things, and then he just does the exact same thing. So it's like, that's the beef I really do have with Captain America, is that if you're not with him, you are like under the bus, scum of the earth. You don't deserve to breathe right now.
As much as I don't want to be the person that defends everything you say, because I completely agree with everything that just came out of your mouth. But I don't dislike it because I appreciate the arc that Captain America goes on. And not to spoil the other movies until we get there, but knowing how they go, Captain America, I don't want to say grew up, but was in World War II, where there was, at that point in time, there was clearly a right and a wrong. There was the Nazis, and then there was the opposition of the Nazis. And that kind of carried with him. He didn't progress like everybody else in time. And that, like, Tony Stark had parents, and they had parents, and so on and so forth, and they grew up, and people mature and grow, and we understand things on a deeper level, and then we get to where we are. Well, Captain America, he just kind of like skipped that because he was frozen.
There's no like gray area for him. It's just black.
Yeah, because and I think it's because he was frozen. When everybody else was growing a new mindset, he was a capsicle.
Yeah.
And I think later, this movie, like I was saying, with setting up an arc for future issues, I think this one does a good job, like establishing that flaw of Captain America, that is black and white, there's no gray, and later he learns kind of the gray and the effects that has on your mind.
That, you're fighting for good, but your own leaders or whatever do a lot of bad things.
Yeah. So I think like, I agree with everything you said, but I don't dislike it because I appreciate the arc it sets up for Captain America. But it is annoying. Like, when he does, I'm like, come on, dude, like, just... but I understand why. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was good that he had to learn and kind of see that for himself. I just don't like how it was, how Tony had to get, like, freaking buzzsaw to the face before that happened.
That's true. I mean, you look at where Captain America is coming from, like what you said, Harrison, about he's a man out of time. And he was in World War II back in the day, and at that point, you trust your government, you trust your orders. You show up now in 2012, and the government is corrupted. They have secrets. They have all this stuff so that we should. We'll talk about this later in Captain America's movies, but his whole arc about that is that he learns that their secrets, that the government is not necessarily like the best thing, and people aren't necessarily truthful at a face value.
So it sets up a good arc for him.
Yeah.
It does.
It does.
So I'm curious. I don't want to spend every podcast talking about Captain America and defending him to Kelton, but I want to say I do understand what you're saying. I agree with you. Yeah. So I don't want you to answer this question. Just kind of rhetoric. I'm interested to see if your opinion will change of him later after watching that arc, or if it will stay the same. Maybe it's the same right now, but
It's been a while since I've seen Phase 2, so it could change.
Yeah, I'm just curious what will happen. I'm not trying to predict what will. I'm expressing curiosity, and I'm intrigued. Yeah, man, I guess I'm just a huge Captain America supporter every time. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. So, favorite scenes, I'm going first. My favorite one is the New York battle, but a very specific moment of it. It's not the beginning. It's kind of like halfway through the battle. It's before Natasha gets up on the roof, and it's after they do the pan around shot. And it's that scene where it's just kind of like, I don't remember if it was one continuous shot or if there was cuts, but it was a scene that starts with Hawkeye telling Iron Man that the Chitauri can't bank at all. He's like, they can't bank worth a darn, find a tight corner. And then they all start working together, and you kind of get this continuous flow of the characters moving around and continually like moving to different parts of the map, if you will, for lack of better words, and interacting with each other. Like, it goes from Iron Man flying in the air, finding all these Chitauri, to landing and shooting a beam at Captain America's shield that he like moves around and cuts a bunch of Chitauri, and then it cuts to him like flying over a Leviathan that Hulk and Thor are on top of, and then they smash it down, and then it goes a Black Widow flying over on the thing, then Hawkeye's shooting people, and it's just like tons of teamwork, and just like such a classic comic book panel-to-panel transition of the characters being a team. And it was like, wow, that was impressive that they put all that together, but it was also just a ton of fun to watch. Like, it was enjoyable to watch. That was my favorite scene. I probably explained it horribly, but hopefully you know what I got. That was my favorite scene. I just was smiling. I was like a 12-year-old, like, yes, this is just so much fun. Seeing all my superheroes get together. That was fun. So,
Yeah. So I got a few favorite scenes. It was like little small points. One is anything Nick Fury says. That guy, whatever he says, it's freaking hilarious. I love it. He's like, let me know if True Power needs a magazine or something like that. Again, those scenes are so funny. I love. I just anticipate what his words. Another one was when Hulk just finally goes on a smashing rampage. I finally get the satisfaction of what Hulk really does after waiting from watching this really just embarrassing movie of the Incredible Hulk. And one thing I want to point out was that they transitioned that weird awkwardness and almost Sasquatch Hulk vibe. They kind of transitioned from that to what they have here. And the whole point where he just goes off and just smashes, jumps, and throws these Chitauri aliens through windows and crushes them is just the greatest satisfaction ever. But one last one was that moment when Iron Man shoots Captain America's shield. That whole point, that just you just stop that frame and just like I can just like post that and hang it up on my wall. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was a sweet scene.
That's sick. I'm pretty conflicted what my favorite scene is, but I would have to say I don't want to go into my fall in here, but I just really like the whole scene of where I'm bouncing around all over my head right now, but I'm just gonna say I really like the first I agree with what all of you guys said, but another scene I really enjoyed is when Iron Man, Thor, and like Captain America have like their first fight in the woods. Like it's just like kind of cool.
Oh yeah.
You get to see how each one of them fight for the first time against each other, and because they're getting to know each other. Like, who the freak is this?
Do you know what you're dealing with? Shakespeare in the Woods?
It's like, does thy mother know thou wearest her drapes or something like that? I just love, their whole just kind of fight right there. Just, the awesome scene where Thor, hits Captain America's shield with his hammer, just levels the entire field of trees and stuff. And just the whole fighting there, like, just cool to see these giant trees getting obliterated. So yeah, that's probably one of my favorite scenes. So
all good picks.
All right, that brings us down to Fall In. I think I speak for everyone here. It's like our favorite part of the whole podcast.
Yeah, I love this.
When we look for certain themes in the movie, and we talk about them, but we try and make them personal. So it's like we learn something from it, but we also learn something from each other, and it makes it a lot more enjoyable to watch a movie and just take something from it that you like always remember, and try and maybe change your life about it or something like that. So I have two different themes I want to talk about for my Fall In, but I think depending on time, I'm just going to try and focus on one. And this scene got me hard. Like, I did not notice. This is the first time I've even known this line was said, but it's right after, oh my gosh, why don't I just forget his name? When he dies, what's his name?
Coulson?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Wow, I can't believe I forgot that. Agent Coulson, right after he dies, it hits the team pretty hard.
Yeah.
There's like one of them, and he's dead. Because they fought, and part of it is it's their fault,
Yeah.
They could have done things different, and they could have saved his life, And so they're all at conflict, and, Nick Fury kind of manipulates him, which is like the other part of the Fall In I want to go into, but I won't for now. He shows him that he never signed his cards. He had them on him, but now they're all like bloodied up and stuff. And you guys failed him in that moment. Sorry, I'm getting... Okay, anyways. So when Captain America and Iron Man are talking about it, and I don't remember exactly what Captain America says, but he says, is it hard adjusting for you,
Is this the first soldier you've lost or something like that?
And Tony Stark, adamantly says, we are not soldiers.
Yeah.
That hit me hard. And I just think that, this is when I truly, really think Tony Stark begins to change.
Yeah.
Because you see it when he first finds out, he doesn't say anything, he just stands up and walks out. Like, he's beginning to realize the consequences of his actions. And with him saying we are not soldiers, I think he's starting to appreciate the human life. And realize, we're not just numbers to get thrown at an obstacle until the obstacle is overcome. But to realize, you could make it easy on yourself to just say, oh, we lost another soldier, it sucks, but we gotta move on, we gotta go defeat this guy, win the war. But to also make it personal, it's like, look, we're not soldiers, we just lost a friend. Someone we knew has died, partly from the consequences of our actions. And so I really like how Tony begins to realize that it's not just him, billionaire, philanthropist, playboy, that he is someone who's responsible for him, but he, because of his abilities, has the ability to help other people or save other people and protect other people. So I really just love the idea of how, just the respect for human life and making it personal. I think that's okay to make things personal instead of just trying to dull your emotions to war. And I'm not saying that that's bad. It's probably makes it really easy to cope with, to go through those kinds of emotions and to continue living and trying to do your life. But just being able to respect and mourn is a completely okay thing.
I agree with that. It's also a side note, because I don't want to take away from the appropriateness of mourning, because that's a really well said thing. But it's almost like the unsaid moment, like Uncle Ben moment, with great power comes great responsibility. It's almost like the same mentality that Iron Man gains, or I guess Tony, without someone saying that. Definitely not those exact words, but also that philosophy and that principle isn't really said in this film, but it's learned. The characters of the film learn it, and if you pick up on it, you can learn it as well, which is.
And I'd say this is the first movie in the MCU when I feel like Tony's arc really begins to start.
Yeah.
Where he really begins to change and realize that sometimes it's more important to put the needs of others ahead of your own.
Yeah.
That's true. I want to point out the point where Captain America is not introduced into this movie is that he's just going ham on this punch bag, destroys it, picks up another one, keeps going. Is that Nick Fury comes up to him and he asks, "How are you sleeping?" And he's like, "I've been asleep for 70 years. I think I've got my fill." He's still recovering from that major life change. It's that he was in this time. This is his present day. This is his life. To where now he is have to put his whole life on hold or leave it behind and start a new one. So he was a scrawny kid from Brooklyn, and now he is this Captain America figure. And one thing that he said, Captain America said that I thought was really cool was, they said when I woke up, they said we won, but they didn't say what we lost. And that phrase, that sentence, I think shows that Captain America you can't just walk off that. The whole point of him losing all these things, to where it even transitions to his conversation that he has with Agent Coulson on the plane jet. And he has a conversation where Nick Coulson makes a reference and Captain America doesn't get the reference. And so it's just another call that he's a man out of his own time. And then Agent Coulson responds to Captain America's saying of, "Well, I'm just old-fashioned. I'm not sure if old-fashioned is the right thing right now." And Coulson says, "Well, people are kind of, afraid, and they're a little scared, and they're a little jumbled and confused, so maybe old-fashioned is what they need." And so that phrase that Coulson said to Captain America, I think plays a part into his storyline, because you find inspiration in very interesting ways in life. And I found inspiration in songs. I found inspiration in talking to friends. I found inspiration by just sitting alone by myself. Going off a tangent here, I listened to a podcast yesterday about where good ideas come from, or where inspiration comes from. Inspiration usually doesn't come from your own mind, your own thoughts. It comes from somebody else because it's a different way of looking at something, different way of, how you word things. And so when it comes to mourning something, sometimes the best thing is just venting about it or talking to somebody, and they just say give their small little tidbit of what they think of it or like how they're sorry for you. Because in this point, that conversation was, I don't know, what was it, 2 minutes, 3 minutes of him saying, I'm too old-fashioned for this, I can't do this, I'm this super strong superhero, super soldier, like how can I provide help? And then Coulson's like, well, you're old-fashioned, maybe we need that figure of help. And then that plays into his arc that I am here to provide that figure to people. So I need to put my life aside and just do what I know what's best. I think that plays a part into what you were and how you have a hard time with Captain America. But going back to being able to mourn and able to just know that you do belong in a place is other people, other than yourself, they are the best medicine for gaining self-confidence, self-esteem, and I think being the best person that you are. Is that you by yourself cannot be the best person, but people with you can be able to help shape you toward whatever you really want to be honest.
I don't have a fall-in. If you want to do your second, Kellen, it was really interesting. Like, not to say that there's not any in this one, but like I just didn't. Normally, like I really pick up on things this time, but I don't know why I didn't this time.
I just like the whole thing with the government, like, and manipulation, and how it really is kind of twisted if you think of how much Nick Fury, just to like get what he wants or what the government wants or anything, he will change things or lie just to get what he wants, and how it really can seem messed up, and you have to ask yourself, like, is it okay to lie if this is the outcome? Like, if it unites the Avengers and helps them fight and win the war, like, is that okay to lie? That's just a good moral, like, question to ask. And how, like, is it okay for someone to be scheming and constantly kind of be dealing under the table and changing things, keeping things secret so you don't know the whole deal? Like, just a question, maybe rhetorical, or for any of our listeners or you guys, like, do you think there's ever going to be a line where it's like manipulation is bad and should never be done? Or are there like exceptions on when you can or should manipulate? I think, manipulate is like a super strong word, and it's always kind of seen as super bad. I'm just curious, like, do you guys ever think there's a time when it's okay?
Yes and no. There's points where I wouldn't say manipulation, but I'd say maybe withholding a couple of truths for a temporary moment. That's what I think is most important, is that you can't just withhold things people from forever, because people deserve the truth. But I think the time and place plays an important role in when a truth should be understood, not when they should find it out, because you can't really control that in many circumstances, but in how it's understood. And there are some points where you can where temporarily holding the truth or waiting for the correct time can bring a better or a stronger motivation or explanation, or a more clear explanation toward that actual specific truth. That's my answer to that. That's what I think.
I don't know about manipulation, but I think that persuasive leadership is a powerful skill. I think it can be used properly. But and again, this is kind of rhetorical, and I don't really have the answer when it comes to manipulation / withholding truth. But I think that in the given situation, withholding or kind of twisting the truth to get people to take a positive unification to go fight for the world, like, that's definitely a positive thing. It's a means to a greater end, but using that same tactic to do something for a selfish reason is obviously horrible. So I don't have the answer. I just think that persuasive leadership is something that should not be used for selfish reasons.
I like that. That's a good one.
So any other fallen thoughts? I mean, I don't think it's a bad thing that this movie's not like incredibly deep. I don't think that the purpose of this movie was made to tell an incredibly deep philosophical idea to make you think about for the rest of your life. I think it was a comic book team up movie. But it's cool to see that there's still things in there that make you think.
I have one more thing. You look at this. This is, how many movies are we into the MCU?
Six. Sorry,
movies.
I lied. There's 6, Kelton. So right in between you and me.
Okay, so there's 6 movies. This is just the beginning of this major onslaught of superhero movies in this major story. These movies changed people's lives, saved people's lives and careers in Hollywood. Like, think about it. If you land a job of being an Iron Man, and then you are in every single MCU movie, all 23, you're in 23 films. You're set. Like, Jarvis, the one actor, that guy is set. He's been in so many movies. Like, think of all those movies he's been in. It's not all of them, but like, Marvel has created this universe of sustainability and of security for people who work into these films and in development, producing, and all that stuff. They've created this massive just genre of where you can, if you work with Marvel, you work with this sort of theme of a movie, that you can be sure that you will be able to have a job and provide for your kids and provide just for yourself. I think that's really impressive that what Marvel has did, rather than just making this awesome story in films, is that everybody behind the scenes now has a life. So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I think it's pretty amazing the careers that it gives people. But I have a question for you guys. I'm trying to find it. Give me a second here. Hold on 1 second. I'm trying to Google something.
Well, Harrison's looking up that. I can maybe mention some stuff. So in the very end there, or not the very end, very beginning, where there's the whole facility of the shield gets taken out and like just collapses completely. The transition of where it shows a train, and then it pans over, and it has Scarlett Johansson interrogating these Russian guys. That one point where it shows the train, my first thought was like, get on the Avenger train. This is going to be a huge thing. And like, now's the time to jump on that bandwagon before it gets really, really, really big. And I thought that was really cool. You know, it may not be, it may be like a binge point or a reference, but I think it's just a good thing to point out that this is a train, and that you jump on this train, you're not gonna regret it.
Okay, so this has to actually do with what Kay just said and kind of the train, air quotes, of the MCU. So this happened recently, just like 2 or 3 days ago, and then we'll hurry up and get into our review ranking. But so Martin Scorsese, I don't know how to say his name, I apologize. He's a director, a very famous, really like honored director in Hollywood. Some films he's known for, just for listeners, is Taxi Driver. That's probably his most famous film. Goodfellas, Mean Streets, or The Age of Innocence. He's a pretty phenomenal director and makes a lot of films, kind of like we talked about, that make you think and have deeper meanings. But so that he said this in an interview with somebody, talking about the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And he says that Marvel movies, he doesn't view Marvel movies as cinema. So this is what he said. I don't see them, revealed Scorsese. I tried, but that's not cinema. Honestly, the closest thing I can think of them, as well made as they are, with actors doing the best they can under the circumstances, is theme parks. It isn't the cinema of human beings trying to convey emotion, physiological experiences to another human being. And there's been tons of responses to it, but my favorite one is probably James Gunn, the director of Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and 2. And he kind of tweeted it and said, Martin Scorsese is one of my 5 favorite living filmmakers. I was outraged when people picketed The Last Temptation of Christ without having seen the film. I'm saddened that he's now judging my films in the same way. So I don't want this to be a huge discussion. I don't want to like pick sides or anything like that. I'm just curious what you guys think, and then I'll share mine about the MCU being not cinema. What do you guys think?
I think that he didn't grow up watching superheroes or looking at them as figures. He saw them as a source of entertainment. And so he doesn't see the side of that. There are so many stories and emotions, and that people get invested in this stuff because this is what they know. This is what they've connected to. That I'm sure he probably connected to different things. Like if you look at his movies, he's never made any superhero movie. And so he may like not like the superhero genre and all these, like, it's the era of superheroes. So that's my first reaction, is that I don't think he was ever really involved in superheroes. So when these movies showed up, he's like, what's so important about them? You know, they're entertainment.
Kellen, what do you think? I've thought about this a lot, so I'll just say I'll reveal my thoughts afterwards. But go ahead.
I just think us like doing this podcast really just shows that, look, you could look at each of these movies and you could learn something from it. Like, I feel like there's definitely passions and emotions put into each and every single one of these movies, and it's just really whether you choose to open your mind to like see those or not. And so I totally see these movies as like a cinematic experience, and like it's something you could totally like I said, learn from and see like the emotion and the feelings and kind of the journey you go on here. So I do feel like they are.
So my response is kind of multi-tiered. Like I said, I've had a lot of thoughts about this, so maybe they're more prepared than you guys. But the main part is that I agree with you. I mean, there's definitely some films that you just watch it and you're like, what was the point of that? Like, besides just making a movie where superheroes fight. Like, I totally understand that. But I think that there's other, that like we've done with every single one of these episodes, there are deep meanings that people, and we're not the only 3 people on the earth that are doing this. There are people that are impacted by these movies. Absolutely. I saw this on Reddit, and I can't find the post. I looked for it, but I was amazed. Like, I got very emotional at work. This guy on Reddit in the movie sub was talking about how he loves movies and how they've saved his life. And there's one line that he said. He was talking that he was in a rough point in his life, and he was ready to commit suicide. And he was going to. But Captain America, the Winter Soldier, was about to come out. And he thought, no, Captain America, the Winter Soldier is coming out in a few months, and that's going to be an amazing movie. I can't die yet. And so he didn't. He saved his own life and went and saw Captain America, the Winter Soldier, and loved it. And then experiences he had in staying alive has kept him alive since. Wow. Like, people's lives are changed by these movies, and I think it's pretty shallow. I'm going to go on a ledge there and say it's pretty shallow to just say that because I don't like these movies, they're not cinema. Like, he may not, and that's totally fine, and I don't think his opinion is wrong. I just think saying that, like, they're just not good enough, like, is so rude to everybody else's opinions. And especially with his definition of cinema being human beings trying to convey emotion, psychological experiences to another human being. Go watch Captain America Civil War and watch Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr. Holy smokes. I think they both deserve Oscars for that movie. Yeah. The other thing is, just a last note, it makes me sad that like the Academy with Oscars has never kind of acknowledged the superhero action genre. The first movie to be like superhero movie to be nominated for Best Picture was Black Panther, which is understandable because of the impact that movie had. But it just kind of made me sad that somebody would judge these movies without seeing them. But at the same time, I don't want to say that he's not wrong. He's totally entitled to his opinion, and some people don't like these movies. Yeah, and
I know people. I know people.
They don't have to.
I know people in my life that they don't like these movies, and they protest, as in like they just don't go watch it.
Yeah, like that's fine. You don't have to like the movie, but and I don't want to attack him for expressing his opinion. That's what the internet's all about. That's what we're doing right now. So, dude, share your opinion. All for it. But my opinion is that these movies are incredible and that they're life-changing and it should be enjoyed. 100%. Yeah. So, yeah, everybody just have your opinion, but be respectful towards other people. I don't think he was being disrespectful for him.
No, he's just stating how he feels.
Yeah. I just wanted to hear what you guys thought. So, anyway, off of that train, back to the Phase 1 ranking. So, we've finished Phase 1. For anybody who doesn't know what that is, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, MCU, is the Infinity Saga, is all the movies from Iron Man all the way to Spider-Man Far From Home, but they're divided up into 3 phases. Phase 1 happens to be Iron Man, The Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2, Thor, Captain America, The First Avenger, and the Avengers. So we ranked them beforehand. I'll review my rankings. We've shared them on social media a bunch. My beforehand ranking of Phase 1 is Iron Man 2 at number 1, Iron Man at number 2, The Avengers at number 3, Captain America, The First Avenger at number 4, Thor at number 5, and The Incredible Hulk at number 6. Cade, you want to read? I'll just read everybody's off because I got it here. Cade's beforehand is Iron Man at number 1, The Avengers at number 2, Captain America, The First Avenger at 3, Iron Man 2 at number 4, Thor at 5, and The Incredible Hulk at 6. Kelton, Captain America, The First Avenger, number 1. That's actually surprising. Iron Man for number 2, Avengers for number 3, Iron Man 2 for 4, The Incredible Hulk for 5, and 6 for Thor. And one more ranking, our average. We have Iron Man, the first one, for numero uno. Captain America and the Avengers are an exact tie for number 2 and number 3. Wow. Iron Man 2 is number 4. Thor is 5. And the Incredible Hulk is number 6. Of course, these will be posted on our social media so you can look at them. But I'm going to write down my ranking here and put it in the after. I don't think I have an after section. We'll make one super quick.
So, Kelton, is there going to be a lot of shifting in your rankings for Phase 1?
Yep. Like, looking at it right now, there's some... Well, not... I'd just say, like, the middle stuff is going to move. Actually, I don't know. I'm still looking at it, but I know the bottom 2 are the same for me. Thor, dead last, every time. But, yeah, things are moving around. I know, for like looking at it right now, things will change. What about you?
I think there'll be about 1 or 2 shifts, but there are going to be a few that will stay the same, that they won't move. That's just based on, because it's fresh in my mind, and I want to update my opinion. Because say the ones that will move, I'll say this: Avengers, Captain America, and Iron Man 2 will actually shift around. We'll shift those around. And Thor. We'll shift those for sure. As far as once Harrison gets this up, we'll jump these. Throw these out here so you can get this all started.
All right. Okay, so this is what the heck? Oh, I'm in the wrong spot. Okay, this is Harrison here. This is my list. So I'm gonna start with my my before one more time. I'll just start with number 6 and I'll work up and I'll say my before. And then I'll say my after. So my number 6 before watching the movies was The Incredible Hulk. My number 6 after watching the movies is most definitely The Incredible Hulk. Okay, my number 5 before watching the movies is Thor. And my number 5 after watching the movies is also Thor. Number 4 for before watching the movies is Captain America, the First Avenger. Number 4 after watching the movies is Iron Man. Number 3... before watching the movies was Avengers. Number 3 after watching the movies is Captain America, the First Avenger. Number 2 beforehand was Iron Man. Number 2 afterwards is the Avengers. And number 1, both before and after, is Iron Man 2. Because I'm in love with that movie. Nice. So that's my list. Go through that one more time after watching the movies. Number 6 is The Incredible Hulk. Thor is 5. Iron Man is 4. Captain America, the First Avenger is 3. The Avengers is 2nd. And Iron Man 2 is 1st.
Wow, very different from mine.
You want to go next?
Yeah, I will love to go next. I've got number 6. Incredible Hulk is number 6, and it will always stay at the bottom. And number 5 for me,
I got it here. It was Thor.
Before was Thor. The number 5 spot for now is the Avengers. Wow. Yeah, it's a different shakeup. Number 4 before was Iron Man 2. And now it is still Iron Man 2. Number 3 was Captain America, the First Avenger. Number 3 is now Thor. And then number 2 was the Avengers. That has now been replaced by Iron Man. And number 1 spot is Captain America, the First Avenger for me.
All right.
Yeah.
Welcome to the club.
Up a ton, other than Incredible Hulk.
Dang.
What about you, Colin?
All right, so before, in Phase 1, at number 6, I had Thor. That ain't gonna change. That thing sucks. Right. So after, number 6 is Thor for me. Then before, number 5, I had The Incredible Hulk. That stayed the same as well. So yeah, after, The Incredible Hulk stays at number 5. Number 4, this is where it started to change. Before, I had... At number 4 was Iron Man 2. Now I have Iron Man, the first one. Before that was at number 2. It dropped 2 spots because I frankly did not remember much about Iron Man 2 and the Avengers. So I love Iron Man, but the other 2 movies I enjoyed more. So Iron Man at number 4. Before I had Avengers at 3. That stayed the same after Avengers at 3. And then right now for number 2 I had Iron Man. After I have Iron Man 2. That was actually a pretty enjoyable movie. I think Harrison might have infected me a little bit with the enthusiasm, because that's a killer movie. And then, same as last time before, I had Captain America: The First Avengers, my favorite of the first phase in the MCU. And after watching the movies, it stays at number 1. Even though I hate the guy, great movie.
So, solid movies all around. I don't think there's much to discuss about those lists. Going through them, I think we all understand why people's are the way they are. We'll scroll down so we can all look at them. Yeah. So, I don't have much else to say. Except for Iron Man 2 is the best movie ever.
Well, guys, it's been awesome. This is the 10th episode that we have done so far, and it has been awesome. Guys, make sure you feel free to add your list of the Phase 1 movies. We'd love to hear what you guys think and why you hate this movie and why you love this movie. Feel free to comment, talk to us, and we'll love to mention you guys for sure. And we will see you next time.
Yeah, so definitely subscribe, because we explained this earlier, but just to explain it again, to keep ourselves relevant, because there's so many other movies to enjoy besides Marvel movies, as great as they are and as much as I enjoy them. We're going to take a break in between each phase. So we're going to take a 3-film break. So 3 weeks, we're going to watch different movies that aren't in the MCU after the phase, and then we'll jump back into phase 2. So I'm honestly so stoked about the movies that we're about to watch, because I'm the one that came up with the schedule. So probably a little biased, but I'm excited nonetheless. So subscribe for that. And thanks for listening. So ciao.
Play to win this week, baby.
Peace out, home dog.